At the kitchen table across from my boo, she plays new Marshmallow. Gosh, that's deja vu. Oh, what a fable to Medusa the Mallow Man, but she's got too many cards in her hand.
Come on now, let's play some Lorcana. With Pirate Donald Duck, it's a Nirvana. We'll down a Dole Whip floater to lick popsicles, play red and blue, a smorgasbord of Lords Lorcana. Hello, everybody.
Hello, and welcome to S'morekana. I'm Brett.
I'm Katie.
And we are delighted to have you back in the restaurant for episode 21.
21. That's nuts. I think we say that every time we say a number of episode. I think we say, it's episode blah. That's crazy.
Or at least you do.
Every time I think it's crazy.
So impressed by a number that's higher than a number.
Well, because that's 21 weeks. That's a long time.
It's almost half a year that we've been doing this, which is pretty cool.
It's so much fun.
Anyway, set champs are looming.
They sure are. They're coming right around the bend here.
The Giga Ursula glimmer towers over us, and soon the Illumineers will wade into battle against each other? Question mark.
Yeah, that's going to be our main focus today on this pod episode. This is our, pre-set champs, let's get into the meta episode. That's going to be our big entree today.
We're going to have lots of tips for you. We're going to talk about what to expect, what decks people might be playing, and maybe what to expect in terms of the store that you're going to or the environment.
Exactly.
And then for dessert,
a refreshing Disneyland sorbet of sorts.
Going to refresh our palates with a bet you didn't know about Diz.
Yeah, but we've got what just happened in our lives here.
Our league ended.
Our league ended. I loved League.
It was a really, really fun iteration of Lorcana League. A real blast. I was a little skeptical at first, because it was a starter deck league, and I thought, I want to experiment with newer cards and try to push the power level and whatever. But it turned into one of my favorite Lorcana experiences.
I love playing Lorcana in these kinds of styles where it's not like classic deck building competitive Lorcana necessarily. I really like a sealed tournament. I imagine I would like a draft. I've actually never been to a draft, but I do like the off the beaten path kind of Lorcana playing, and that's what I loved about League. Everyone started with a starter deck. It was cool to get to know the starter decks because we certainly wouldn't have bought any starter decks, and a lot of people that we're playing with wouldn't have bought starter decks. So it's nice to get your thumb kind of on what it's like for people who are joining Lorcana right now and getting starter decks.
And we got to play with some new players who were new to Lorcana, including the soccer moms, who we got to play so many games with, and that was really, really fun, and I'm looking forward to playing more with them as part of our local community.
Yeah, it was awesome. How'd you do in League?
Well, I finished second in the final tournament. So we had one tournament to kind of culminate everything. We had the 4 weeks of regular league play, and then this last week was the Swiss tournament with bonus points for however high you finished. So, if you're in first, you got 20 league points. If you're in second, you got 15 or whatever. I finished second in the tournament and third overall.
Yep, I finished third in the tournament and second overall. 2-3, baby, 2-3.
Yeah, not too bad. Pete won the tournament and the overall league. He had the maximum number of points possible, I believe, over the course of the league. So he had a great, great run. He destroyed me in the finals of the tournament with a whole bunch of evasive tech. He had 4 of the Shift Pegasus, and that was too much for me to overcome. It's easy to forget how strong evasive is in these limited formats. I had only a couple of Isabellas in my deck, so it was not too much of a contest, unfortunately, but I had a good run, and I had a great time with my deck.
Yeah, it was a blast. It was so much fun. It was such a cool grand finale to League to have it be this tournament, and everyone was so excited, and we got some nice prizes, too. We got some pins, some swag, some promo cards. Really fun.
Yeah, we pulled a foil Ursula legendary in our packs.
Did.
That was cool.
We did. Yep, that was a great bonus.
Another shout out to Pete real quick. Same Pete from last week's episode, by the way. Not such a bad guy, Pete. He had a really cool pivot off of the starter deck colors entirely. So he was one of the only players in the league to run any Emerald cards. because, the Madrigal starter deck is Amber Amethyst, and I stuck with that. And, the hero deck is Sapphire Steel, and you stuck with that. And a number of players did. And there were a few that pivoted off into different colors. A couple of players picked up Ruby.
Yep, Rob and Jimmy picked up Ruby to
Yep.
play with. That was cool.
But Pete's pivot to Emerald, I think, did a lot of work for him, and it was really cool to see. Also, we did enact an elaborate plan to steal Pete's Cinderella. After last week, we were able to accumulate a lot of information about what his pins might be, his passwords, certain addresses where they might be stored, both his mat and his card. And it was so funny listening to him say, like, "Oh, I had to send out my Cinderella today because it sold on eBay, and I'm not sure. The post office said the address was weird." And I was just sitting there like,
Our plan worked.
yeah, little does he know.
The address is our address.
Yeah, he'll never listen to this. So luckily, we're going to have our own Cinderella that we stole from Pete really soon. Nobody tell him.
Don't tell him. I smell in the air another Smorkana giveaway coming soon.
You do?
I do. Like I was saying earlier, we got a lot of pins. We got some cool swag from our league prizes. So be on the lookout in the next couple weeks for another giveaway coming from us. We love a good giveaway.
We do. Maybe a Mim pin.
Maybe a Mim pin. Mim pin.
Did you ever read the Roald Dahl book, The Min Pins?
No. Roald Dahl freaks me out a little bit. Scary.
Yeah, it was. The Min Pins was terrifying. It was ostensibly a children's book, not really beautifully illustrated children's book about giant fire-breathing monsters that roasted children alive.
Nope. I'm all set. Thank you.
But the Min Pins were tiny people who saved children from the giant, Vermicious Knit or whatever. Anyway.
Yikes. Well, on another topic, I'm feeling a little hungry. Should we just skip apps and go straight to the entree today?
I think our entree is so meaty that we should totally just dig into that.
Let's do it.
Hi, Gerald. Oh my goodness, Geraldine.
I'm sorry. It's like it's on fire.
It's on fire.
And, like, I didn't mean to. Like, I'm gonna go.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. Bye.
Oh, this is on fire.
No,
we gotta get some water.
God,
what do we do?
what
do we
is
do?
it?
Stop, drop, and roll.
No, we gotta put something on it.
Like
Put something on
sand,
it.
like douse it. Oh my goodness.
That was terrible.
Why did she serve us a bucket of flaming chaos here?
Well, I think it was meant to be like a bucket of chicken wings.
Uh-huh.
You can kind of see the remnants down there, but I think she lit it on fire somehow. She's doing better, folks. She's honestly doing better at the restaurant.
She's
but
back on the dinner shift at least, but
Geraldine still is having a hard time.
yeah, it's okay. We just gotta try to help her stay calm, and sometimes you just gotta try to keep a level head.
And
hi.
I'm like so sorry about that. Do you want me to bring out another dish or
No,
like?
you know what? It's okay. You know what? You just leave it here, and Geraldine, as long as you keep trying your best, try to enjoy yourself, try to get a little bit better every day. I think you're going to be a great success here very soon.
You think so?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, well, like, enjoy, and, like, let me know if you need anything, okay?
Okay, thank you, Geraldine.
Poor thing.
Poor thing.
She's so nervous. Well, like you said, there's no need to panic. Set champs are coming up next weekend. They're right on the horizon. Take a deep breath, everybody. You're here because you love Lorcana, or you just love snacks, but if you just love snacks, you should love Lorcana, too. It's just a fun game. It's a fun Disney trading card game that we love. It's going to be a blast. We're going to walk you through the meta a little bit today.
Give you a few tips. Try to pick up a couple extra wins maybe if you're going to an event. But if we have one point that we want to emphasize, it's that all you got to do is keep a level head, try to enjoy yourself. Remember that no matter how badly you want an Ursula promo card, very few people get them, and the stakes aren't that high.
It's just a card.
It's just a card.
It's okay.
The most important thing is the friends you make along the way.
And
And I'm sure that sounds saccharine to a lot of you out there, but I think there's truth in it, and I think honestly you'll perform better if that is your mindset. I know I'm going to try to have that mindset as much as I possibly can.
yeah, we've even I think we mentioned this on the last pod, but we have built a couple of decks that are just fun for us to play to kind of remind us of the of the simple joys of Lorcana.
Yeah.
Not that it's not fun to drill games and get really kind of competitive about it and get excited in that way, because that is its own joyful thing. But it's, important to remember the game and just make a deck that has a bunch of pretty princesses in it that you want to play with for fun.
Yeah. I was playing against our pal and super fan Jimmy the other day, and he was playing a Mickey Mouse trumpeter deck. And it was maybe 5 turns into the game, and he had, ramped really hard with like Pluto into a Mickey trumpeter to play another Mickey trumpeter for free. And meanwhile, like, I'm playing characters on the board too. And we just started laughing because we realized that all of his characters had 0 strength.
Yeah.
And it was that kind of like really silly gameplay that can make you, I don't know, fall in love with Lorcana all over again, right? It's that kind of joy is as important as, grinding really hard and winning a competitive match.
And I think that's what makes you a better player. I mean, Jimmy got a Stitch.
Yeah.
And he's one of the goofiest, deck creators in the world. And I think that makes him the great player that he is being able to be open and understand the cards and, see it from that perspective. It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're going to your local set champs, remember to have fun, not expectations.
Yeah.
And you'll
Put
be
that on
vibing.
a T.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, fun, no expectations. So if you're binging right now, if you're relatively new to the cast and you're wondering about what back episodes might help you with set champs, there are a couple that we can highlight that cover topics that could be of use, yeah? So episode 9 of Smorcana is called Lorcana Tempora. That will help you with one of the most basic and important tenets of card games. It's about tempo, about determining who is the quote-unquote beatdown. Basically, it's about reading the game state and figuring out if you're on offense or defense. And that will help you so much. If you are struggling in Lorcana, make sure, you have your basics covered. You're analyzing each game as to whether you are on offense or defense, how you're playing for tempo, and it really will help. So episode 9, Lorcana Tempora. Episode 10 is called Cogsworth Finishing School for Polite Gaming Society, and we have a couple characters who help teach proper gaming etiquette and decorum, and that's good if you're unfamiliar with the tournament scene and you're not exactly sure what to expect. It's about how you might interact with an opponent, how an opponent might interact with you, what are the kind of social expectations. So recommend that one if you're new to tournaments in general. And then episode 17 was on the power of losing. And that's really great if you're having difficulty with your mindset going into these events. It's kind of what we were just talking about a little bit, but on a bigger scale. So episodes 9, 10, and 17, I'd say, are the 3 best episodes to go back and listen to if you want some sage advice or not so sage advice. You tell us about what to do with set champs.
Something else to keep in mind as we're going over this list of what to expect in the meta. I know that I personally have a hard time sort of memorizing this, right? If I haven't played enough games against a certain kind of deck, I'm worried about having it all memorized. I'm worried about remembering it in the moment. Are you allowed to write down notes about these different matchups for yourself to bring?
So you're not allowed to write things down during any matches. You could conceivably have a cheat sheet in your pocket that you consult between rounds. That wouldn't be a problem. Just like you could look stuff up on your phone in between matches. That's fine. I would say, though, that you need those bits of time in between rounds to relax, to chat, to have fun. And I think that will help you. It's like that thing for actors, as performers, we're like, once it gets to opening night, the work's been done, Wherever you're at, that's where you're at. The audience is there, the tournament has arrived, and whatever work you've put in, that's the work you put in, and they can't change it now, so you might as well just go for the ride. I personally try to stay away from any kind of notes like that, and to that end, I think today what we're trying to do is give you really digestible bits of information. Yeah, just kind of broad strokes and maybe a couple of specific tips for different matchups so that you can digest them, hopefully absorb them, and it's not just a huge lot of information that you will have trouble internalizing.
Exactly. I think that brings us to our next point, too, which is that you should bring a deck that you're familiar with. You're not going to have to memorize anything about it if you've played it a bunch.
Absolutely. So what deck are you playing?
I'm bringing Ruby Amethyst. I've played a bunch with it. I feel really comfortable with it. I feel like I've gotten a lot of games. I know that the rule of thumb that you've said is to be able to play, at least 20 games with the deck that you're bringing. So you feel cozy. It's a good number to kind of aim for, right? I've definitely played more than 20 games with Ruby Amethyst. So I feel really ready and I feel confident in it. And I always feel like I have a chance in my matchups.
Yeah, I'd say, the 20 game thing is a rule that I kind of made for myself where that's a pretty small number of matches overall. So if you haven't even played 20 games with your deck, then you definitely haven't played enough to switch to it. Yeah. You're going to play much, much better if you have a deck you're familiar with. If you're struggling, if you're picking between two decks, bring the one that you have played the most. Forget about meta reads. Forget about what you think other people will be playing or your matchup spread or whatever. Just play the deck that you have the most games with, and it will most likely be the best avenue to success.
Now, what are you bringing?
Oh, I'm not following that advice at all. I might just be pivoting. I might be pivoting. I've played the most games with Ruby Sapphire, for sure. I have played so many games against you playing Ruby Amethyst, and I struggle against you so much. That matchup is very, very difficult. And so I'm a little bit wary of bringing Ruby Sapphire. If I was following my own advice, that's what I would bring.
Right.
Because I'm a total hypocrite, I'll bring either a homebrew or like Sapphire Steel, or also bring Ruby Amethyst. I don't know yet. The one thing I really, really don't want to play is Emerald Steel discard.
I can't blame you. It's kind of like joining the dark side, doing Emerald Steel.
Yeah. And I know, I think part of it is that I know it frustrates people right now, and I don't want to frustrate people with my deck choice. Like, I'm like such a people pleaser, I guess, or something, that I just don't want people to sit down. I'll play my Diablo on turn one, and they just like grimace, and think they're going to have a terrible time. So that doesn't sound too fun.
No.
But, to each their own. I don't begrudge anybody else picking Emerald Steel at all. So if that's what you've played the most, go with it. Diablo is a good bird.
Yeah, shoot your shot. All right, let's hop into this meta. We've got this now, I guess it's just a little warm. It's not quite on fire anymore. This bucket of what used to be food.
We can kind of pick through here now.
Yeah, we got a lot of little nuggets in here.
Yeah, so we're going to go through a bunch of matchups in order of predicted popularity. So we have like 8 or 9 decks here in the order of how likely you are to face them, roughly. And so we're going to say what that deck's kind of general game plan is, what are some of their most important cards, and then we're going to give you a tip for beating each deck. So nice and digestible, an overview and a tip.
Love it.
Great. So the first deck is the famous Ruby Amethyst.
My boy.
It's going to be very popular in set champs. It just won a 10K in Atlanta last week. I think that the conventional wisdom was that it struggles against Emerald Steel, but that the Ruby Amethyst players are learning how to navigate that matchup. And so having flipped that a little bit or improved their odds, I think it's likely that you're going to see a lot of this deck.
Yeah, it's just consistently great. I love it.
So what does it do, Katie? What's the general game plan of Ruby Amethyst?
So generally, it's really good at drawing cards. You've got Maleficent in there. You've got your Fox, Meta Mim Fox in there. It presses that advantage in the form of removal actions, right? So it's got Be Prepared. It's got King Undisputed. It's got ways to keep their hands full and ways to clear your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the best way to defeat this deck, I suppose, or a great tip for this, would be to space out and diversify your threats. Right? So the Ruby Amethyst has a lot of ways to target one individual card. That could be Tremaine, it could be King Undisputed, right? But you've got to have a bunch of big threats on the board so that their only possible way out is a Be Prepared. Because don't forget, a Be Prepared also wipes their board. So they're going to want to hold it back until they see a lot of big threats on the board. And if you can squeeze out your stuff fast enough and go faster than Ruby Amethyst, then you're golden.
So basically, don't fear the Be Prepared. Play right into it.
Exactly.
But what you want to do is, again, diversify your threat. So if you're pressing to get a Be Prepared played, then you want to have that follow-up ready. And that means not only having a big character to play after Be Prepared, but a small character as well. I think a lot of lists are really greedy and cutting 1-drops and things like that. And that can be really dangerous against these Ruby Amethyst decks that play Tremaine and Be King Undisputed, where if you only have one character on the board, it's going to be really easy for them to clear it with just a simple Tremaine play.
Yeah, and if you have a little 1/1, it's very frustrating when you're playing Ruby Amethyst to have somebody else pop a little 1/1 on their board.
So you want to apply a pressure to the board, force the Be Prepared, and then diversify in terms of keep some small characters, keep some big characters.
Yep.
Awesome.
I've got another little nugget here, Brett.
Sure.
It looks like it was squirrel meat.
Ugh.
What deck is this?
I think a lot of people would be very happy to munch on some squirrel meat right about now in the Lorcana community.
Yeah, maybe.
So Emerald Steel is probably the next most popular deck in the worldwide metagame.
Yeah, what does
now.
it do?
So Emerald Steel is going to tear your hand apart. They're going to make you discard all of your cards, and then they're going to parlay that into board advantage. So they play these weak characters, but the weak characters are allowed to subsist because you don't have a hand to counter them. Also, they have Diablo, which might be the best card in the game. It's super polarizing. It needs to be answered. So they put a lot of pressure on you, on the board, and especially on your hand, and they are able to grind out these games from that position.
Yeah, once you can kind of figure out how to play against Emerald Steel, the boogeyman becomes much less frightening. I think that if you're walking in completely unprepared, that can rock your whole day. If you don't know what's going to happen and you're not sure about it, I think what's been most helpful to us, obviously, is playing games. But if you can't play games, on YouTube, you can see a lot of people play this deck. And you can just search, Emerald Steel Lorcana, and you can see how they play it and what cards they're playing so you know what to expect.
Yeah, there's some really great content. I'm thinking from 20 Lore Pro in particular is a great channel to follow. They've been streaming some large events, both in Atlanta and at their home stores in Texas. So if you search for their YouTube channel, you can see some really great quality streamed matches. Highly recommend watching matches for sure. Now, how do we beat Emerald Steel? What's a tip? How can we munch on some squirrel meat?
Oh my gosh. This tip might be my favorite thing that I've ever discovered about Lorcana. Right?
Wow. Okay.
It's that you don't have to play on curve. Specifically to beat Emerald Steel, right? It might not be in your best favor to play on curve, right?
Yeah.
A 1-drop 2/2 isn't going to do anything to win you the game in the long run, right? And they're just going to be able to get rid of it. And it's just a card or an ink that you had in your hand that they've now discarded, right? You're playing into their game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the key that Ruby Amethyst players have realized is that they don't have to play on curve because they really had been wanting to go, Chernobog's followers on 1, then Flynn, then Sisu, then Castle. And especially on the draw, that doesn't work against Emerald Steel. They just have too much action advantage with the Diablos and all of their songs. So yeah, playing your Robin Hood out on turn 1 is just asking to get blasted by Let the Storm Rage On.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to shift him. He's going to be gone.
And so, a lot of times the conventional wisdom is to play on curve, We always say that if you're looking for a baseline power level of things to do in Lorcana to win a game, it's try to spend all of your ink and play a card, the biggest card you can every turn. But against Emerald Steel in particular, they don't go super fast. Most of the characters that they're playing in the early game are questing for 1, and they don't want to use Bucky to quest. And so they don't go super fast. If you can hold out, make sure that you're inking up into your powerful plays, like Be Prepared or Grab Your Swords or whatever, then you can turn the tides against that deck.
Yeah, definitely. Can try to undo their game. All right. This next little nugget, is this a popsicle stick?
I think it used to be a popsicle and it quickly melted.
Yikes, we've got a Ruby Sapphire deck here.
Yeah, definitely going to see some Ruby Sapphire out there. Ruby Sapphire is probably the deck that I've played the most in the past month or so.
Definitely.
It has a really homogenous game plan across all of its matchups. Yeah, it's going to ramp, It's going to then try to clear your board with Be Prepared or Big Sisu, and then it's going to play Lucky Dime and Tamatoa and try to make up all of the ground it lost really quickly. Every single game is going to play out pretty much like that. Their deck has gotten really good at doing that thing and filtering through and finding the pieces of the engine that they need, but they are not super adaptable. You won't see them changing up their plans very much. So you can know what to expect when you're playing against Ruby Sapphire for sure.
Yeah, I think the reason that Ruby Amethyst is so great against Ruby Sapphire is because you have to go fast to get ahead of Ruby Sapphire. They will go slow, right? Like you were saying, they ramp, they take their time, they build up to a Lucky Dime and a Tamatoa. But if you've gotten to them playing a Lucky Dime and a Tamatoa and you haven't won the game yet, it's really hard to come back from that. It is so consistent, like you said, you know? So it's definitely don't tilt or give up when you see the Lucky Dime and the Tamatoa, but it's going to be really hard to get them from that step. But a deck like Ruby Amethyst, for example, is good at going fast and applying that early pressure.
You can go under them, as it's known in card game parlance. You can go right under them, means like going faster than them. Yeah, so I think that's a great tip. If you are able to apply early pressure, do that. Do that because you have a window of time where they're not playing characters. In their first 3 or 4 turns, they're only playing Hiram as a character, a 1/6. And so if you're able to rush, do that. And another quick tip, I know we said we're doing one, but something I do want to point out is hold your removal for Hiram. That is your best shot to stall the game, to keep them from enacting their plans even faster. Like if they can fuel a fishbone quill, find all their pieces really fast, you give yourself less of a window if they're drawing a ton of cards. So don't ink your brawls against Ruby Sapphire. Don't ink your brawls. Definitely hold them in your hand. If you have 4 brawls, that's 1 for each Hiram, and that's where they should go.
Definitely.
All right. The last of potentially the big 4 morsels in this flaming bucket of who knows what.
Our last big chunk here.
Yeah.
This chunk, I don't really know what the shape of it is. It seems strange, but special somehow.
A deck that might have Bell in it. Strange but special.
Perhaps.
Sapphire Steel. Sapphire Steel is a really cool deck. It does things that other decks don't do. It has some really cool tricks. It's well-rounded, really interesting list. The overall game plan for them is to ramp up into really sticky boards, resilient boards. Cards like Cogsworth and Tinkerbell kind of help them take the board back after they've ramped. They will then play Whole New World, refill, find their Lucky Dime, and then they can win off of Lucky Dime. And they tend now to have a diverse array of targets for those Lucky Dimes. So instead of it being the 4 Tamatoas that Ruby Sapphire has, they'll run Tamatoa and Bell Strange But Special and or the new Ward Aerial that keys off of items. So basically they ramp up, they make a sticky board, they use that sticky board to give them some time to play a Whole New World, find their dime, and then target Aerial for 15 lore across 2 turns.
Yeah, that Whole New World is tricky and definitely a good nugget to be aware of. I think that sometimes Sapphire Steel is not as popular as the other decks that we've talked about, and so it's easy to forget that it has big guns like that hiding in its deck.
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky compared to Ruby Sapphire to me, because they can more easily adapt their game plan. Sapphire Steel often will play cards like Smee. Sometimes they'll play Captain Hook. Sometimes they play Detective Mickey on turn 3. And so they're dropping characters that more readily impact the board earlier than Ruby Sapphire does. So it's a little bit harder to rush them down and just purely play off of running to 20 as fast as you can.
Yeah, definitely.
If I have a tip for this matchup, I would say that if you are on the draw in particular against them, so you're going second against a Sapphire Steel player, make sure you're using your hand. And a lot of times this means dumping out your hand as quickly as you can, playing a whole bunch of cards, inking things you can ink, etc., so that Whole New World is less impactful and isn't as much of a blowout. So if you've been kind of playing slow on the draw, or you're only playing, inking and playing a card and inking and playing a card, and you're maybe drawing along the way, then the Sapphire Steel player, when they play Whole New World, is going to blow you out. They'll gain usually 5 to 7 cards. And if you're only gaining 2 to 3 cards, that's a big, big shift in the game. And likely they're making you discard cards with their Whole New World that you curated, that you maybe kept in your mulligan. So keep that in mind as well. Prepare for the Whole New World. Always keep that in mind.
Be prepared for the Whole New World.
And that's, it's really hard to hold a Be Prepared in your hand against a Sapphire Steel player. They will very often be playing Whole New World before you get to that point. And so you can't rely on your Be Prepareds as much. You have to assume that it's going to get discarded, and you're going to have to find another one after.
All right, here at the bottom of the bucket, we've got some exotic fruits down here. Something you don't see as often as the other decks.
I would say that each of the decks from here on out, there might be 1 or 2 of them in a typical, 25-ish player set championship, and no more. I'd say 0 to 2 of them is what I should say.
And these are the ones that could throw you for a loop. If you've never played against these before, or you don't know what they do, these are the ones that can really make you tilt. If you feel like you could tilt, if one of these comes in and destroys you and you didn't know it existed as a deck, right? Or that anyone would even bring it in this meta, that can be tough. So let's dive into these burned fruits.
Sure. So at the bottom here, we've got Amethyst Steel.
Yeah. So Amethyst Steel is like a chameleon in a way, right?
Yes.
It can speed up with its goats and its spellbooks. It plays spellbooks, yes. And it can slow down with all the draw and removal that it has. Like, it's wildly adaptable to beat you.
Yeah. It has an answer potentially for everything in the meta, right? It has maybe Tinkerbells on one end, and then it might have Quest for 2 Maleficent that costs 1 at the other end. So, it can have speed or control elements to it. It's super, super adaptable.
Right. So this monster, how can we possibly beat this, Brett?
So if you don't know what tempo is, now is the time to learn. If you haven't listened to our episode on tempo, I'd say go back and give that a listen, because so much of this matchup is knowing your role in the game and tracking if your role shifts. Are you trying to slow them down because they've played a Maleficent and they have a spellbook and they're already up to 12 or 13 lore? Or are you ahead in the game and you're trying to diversify your threats so that their removal doesn't hit as hard? You want to make sure you're constantly aware of what your role in the matchup is, because it can be difficult to determine, and it also can shift at certain points. So if you are initially trying to regain the board and slow them down, and then you've accomplished that, recognizing when it's time to turn on the gas and go for 20 lore, that is super, super important in this matchup.
Yeah, it's a deck I haven't seen in a long time. I'd be excited to play against it, honestly.
Yeah.
It's a cool deck.
It's really, really strong. And I think this one we put just below the big 4 because it has had some little successes across the pond. Spessy, who's a great player and YouTuber, he won an event with an Amethyst Steel list that was really, really interesting and is definitely an adaptable game plan kind of deck. So I would expect that this could rise in popularity over the next couple weeks.
Yeah. Look at this next little burnt nugget. If you put it up to your ear, you can kind of hear a song.
Oh, Amber Steel Song.
Oh, it's Amber Steel Song. Duh.
So Amber Steel Song, their game plan is to shift big characters and sing big songs.
Yeah, man.
They want to sing Whole New World faster than everybody because they do it better than everybody.
Yeah.
They can shift into a 5-cost Queen, shift into a 5-cost Robin Hood, or drop Ariel on turn 3, and then they are singing Whole New World well before you're ready for such a thing to happen. From there, they grab control of the board using all of their damage songs, and then they can gain lore pretty quickly with either flutes or pride lands, or just with big characters like Cinderella Stouthearted, depending on the version that they're running. So basically an early whole new world, then a bunch of damage spells come your way and keep you off of the board, and then they close it with some lore grab.
A crazy deck.
Really, really fun. It's been super popular since the dawn of Lorcana. It just didn't get a lot of new cards in this set.
Right, which is why our tip remains the same that it was last time we did an episode like this, right? The deck really hasn't changed. In its, foundations, it has not changed. Some people might be tossing in new cards, etc., but not much. So do not feed the Rapunzel, much like a gremlin. Don't feed the Rapunzel.
That was our tip last time when we were talking about the Into the Inklands set champs, and if you were facing Amber Steel Song, don't feed Rapunzel. It is still the best tip we can give. If you see a character on their side that has more than 3 willpower, and you have a character on your side that's exerted with 3 strength, all they have to do is crash into your character, play Rapunzel, they draw 3 cards, and that absolutely can lose you the game.
Yeah, for sure. If you can get rid of a whole new world, maybe with Ursula, or maybe you can keep them from being able to sing it, right? Kill their characters.
But boom, they're Robin Hood, perhaps.
Exactly. They're going to really struggle to rebuild after that.
Yeah, if they're not playing Whole New World, or it's not advantageous for them to play Whole New World, and you're keeping them off of Rapunzel, they can definitely struggle with ink. Those decks love to play 16, 17 uninkable cards, and they can brick their draws pretty frequently, more frequently than they would like, I think.
Definitely. Ooh, look at this. Look at this down here. It looks like it was covered in squid ink.
Ugh.
Oh, what is that? Here, let me rinse it off.
Oh, it's Emerald Amethyst.
It's Emerald Amethyst.
This is a tempo deck. It can go pretty quickly, and it can slow things down when it needs to. It's kind of like they're in first place in Mario Kart, and they can keep dropping these little bananas behind them,
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like a blue spiked shell that's going to blow everything up like a Be Prepared would. It's just like Mother knows best. Keep you off of the tempo race while they get to lore with their merfolks and their Flynn Riders.
Yeah, I think comparing it to a banana in Mario Kart is perfect because it makes you make the same face of like, ugh.
I can't believe I hit that banana.
Oh my God.
A banana of all things.
It's an old deck, right? It's a deck that we know from the last meta, but it definitely has some new pieces in it. Shifting Ursula, right? And Cricky.
Yeah, those are the 2 pieces that I think have made the biggest impact in those lists. They're the things that you do want to consider. And Cricky's not in every list, but Ursula, I think right now is in pretty much every Emerald Amethyst list. So, in particular with Ursula, a good tip is consider whether your removal is going to be better before or after they shift. Just keep it in mind, right? So maybe if they play a 4/7 quest for 3, you can't sing things Ursula right now. That would be really bad for you. And you can prevent it by removing a 1/3 Ursula. That's the way to go. If you can smash that Ursula or challenge it somehow, then that can be worthwhile. Or maybe we don't talk about Bruno in your hand, and you would rather let them shift it and then bounce them both back to their hand. And maybe they can't even play Big Ursula back to the board if they were relying on the shift to overcome an ink deficit.
Definitely. Oh, look at this. It's,
Ooh, a fuzzy maned...
Yeah, it's got lion fur on it.
I don't know what that is. It's like
What is this?
A hairy nugget.
Oh, a hairy nugget. It must be Amber Ruby Mufasa. Duh.
Oh, one of my old favorites. So Mufasa traditionally is going to just play a big body every turn, and they're going to hope that those big bodies are bigger than yours, and they're going to try to stay resilient against your board wipes with the Mufasa, and they're going to just try to turn their cards sideways and hope you can't stop them most of the time. It's one of the least tricky decks. They're super straightforward. They're going to play Mulan, then they're going to play Pegasus, then they're going to play Gaston, then they're going to try to play Medusa or Tremaine or Shift Mulan or something. They're just trying to play their biggest characters every turn and eventually, fill their hand a little bit with a Rapunzel draw.
Yeah, I mean, there's something nice about that deck being really straightforward too. Because it's not seen as often, it's very nice that You know what they're doing. As soon as you see them start popping out those amber ruby cards, you're like, oh, I know Mufasa's coming. Boop, he comes down. If you know how to attack it, you're all set.
Yeah, it's very predictable. Unfortunately, because it is so predictable, it is super, super weak into any discard deck. Because like we were saying before, sometimes playing off of curve against a discard deck is really helpful. You know, you're like, oh, this one drop isn't going to do anything for me, so I can be patient and ink it instead. Well, Mufasa, if they're not playing cards to the board, then they don't have a game plan. So they kind of just have to walk right into a discard deck and continue doing their thing. They're not super adaptable. That makes them much, much stronger when going first. And that probably is our biggest tip for playing against them, is just to know that they're going to quest hard and slow them down as much as you can. Just be ready for that. They are going to have evasive characters, most likely. Prepare for that. If you don't have evasive characters yourself, make sure you have removal for evasive characters. Other than that, play to the board, slow them down.
Slow down that lion. Oh, look at this. It's a can of lemon lime soda.
Ooh, that survived the fire.
Oh my gosh, it survived the fire. It's an amber emerald deck.
We continue to push the boundaries of food similes.
Yes, we're always pushing the boundaries.
So, Amber Emerald likes to bounce their characters and your characters with cards like the Muses, and loop things with Ariel, play Ariel a whole bunch, bounce her back, play her again. They set up these loops, they delay the game, and eventually they're going to set up this Kita and Under the Sea combo where they play Kita to reduce all of your character's strength by 3, they play Under the Sea, and most of the time that's going to be a one-sided board wipe. And then they can win the game from that dominant position.
Yeah. What's the best thing to do to beat this Kita Under the Sea? A combo like Kita / Under the Sea keeps me up at night. It's those kinds of combos from decks that I am not familiar with playing against that are maybe the biggest boogeyman in my mind when you're looking at set champs.
Mm-hmm. So as soon as you see this color combination, remember to play the biggest possible characters you have. All of their removal is dependent on strength reduction, just like Ruby Sapphire uses strength reduction. So you're going to see things like Painting the Roses Red, for example, and Kita to reduce your character's strength so that they can bounce bigger things off of the board. A good example of a fantastic card into this matchup is the 3-cost Inkable Sisu that gains strength based on cards in your opponent's hand. Sisu alone is a big problem for Amber Emerald. They tend to keep a lot of cards in their hand. They draw really well. They like to bounce their own cards back to their hand to further come into play effects like Ariel's. And so get big dudes on the board, preferably ones with high strength, and you can make yourself pretty resilient.
Nice. Oh, ow.
Yikes.
This last little piece is biting us back. Ow, oh no, it's so aggressive.
Oh, it's an aggro list.
Oh, right.
An aggro list, and we're just using an encompassing term to talk about any deck that wants to play high lore characters on the board and then turn them sideways and get to 20 as fast as possible. The traditional color pairing for this is Amber Amethyst. That's the one you're probably most likely to see, but you could conceivably see an Amber Sapphire list that does this. You can see aggro versions of Ruby Amethyst or Amethyst Steel. Any of those aggro lists kind of have the same game plan, and that's just to go real fast.
Yeah, if you've gotten to the end of a game and you don't recognize the deck that they're playing and the game is over in 5 minutes and you lost, you probably played against an aggro deck, you know? It's a good clue. And once you've played that one game, even if it was a loss, you'll then know, oh, it's aggro. Here's how I have to play against it.
So that's our number one tip, I'd say, for playing against aggro, is just to diagnose the fact that you are playing against an aggro deck as soon as possible. Hopefully on turn 1, you'll say, oh, this is going to go fast. I'm going to adapt my game plan to suit. If you see a 1-cost character that quests for 2, you need to immediately think about how your game plan is changing. Don't just keep falling into the same patterns that you've been using for other matches. This is different. You can definitely beat aggro. It's something that preys on you being unprepared.
Yeah, so what aggro's going to do is they're going to try to play the highest possible lore characters and quest as quickly as possible. They're just getting as much as they possibly can in as quick as they possibly can.
Yeah, so don't worry about, your combo pieces, your late game win conditions. You're not getting to Tamatoa against these kinds of decks, right? So a great example is if there's a Lilo on the board and your turn 4 play, the best character you can play is Rapunzel rather than, something that's only going to draw you cards like a Friends on the Other Side, I don't know. Then play that body, play the character that can challenge their characters. You will lose a greater percentage of the time if they are able to use their characters to quest more than once. If you can challenge their characters as soon as they quest, knock them off the board, then usually you will give yourself enough time. They'll get up to 14, 15, 16 lore, and then they will start to peter out.
Yeah. Wow, this was a delicious burnt meal. I'm surprised, we got a lot out of that.
It was a lot of food, wasn't it? It was a lot to cover. Hopefully that provides a really good overview of what to expect at the set championships. Now, of course, you might see some rogue decks that we didn't cover here today. I'm thinking particularly of perhaps the Amber Ruby high location amount list that has been making some waves. So there are going to be lists out there that we didn't cover for sure. And the best thing you can do is just try to figure out what they're doing, keep a level head, trust in the work that you did put in, trust in the knowledge that you do have, and have fun.
Definitely. Little burnt nuggets to take with you in your pockets on your adventures, these set champs.
Bonsoir, madame et monsieur. Comment ça va?
Hey, Francois. We're doing well. How are you?
You had the entree that was had a bit fire, yes?
Yeah, that's okay. We know Geraldine's still training and figuring it out. We're not worried about it.
I'm pleased that you are not upset with us. I apologize for any smoldering ashes in your teeth. But I am happy to bring you a bit of a sorbet tonight. It is cool. It is refreshing. It will cleanse the palate. I know that you have been eating something very technical, and this is perhaps light and a bit of air for you.
Thanks, Francois.
Thank you so much, Francois. This looks great. This is just what we needed, is a nice sorbet. Cleanse the palate.
Exactly. You don't need any of that heavy stuff anymore.
No more char.
Let's go to a smaller topic. Let's talk about the Little Man of Disneyland.
The what?
The Little Man of Disneyland.
I have no idea what you're about to talk about, and I'm very excited.
So it's good to understand. I'll give you a little bit of backstory first. Disneyland is so stinking cute. You walk in, you look at the castle, it's tiny. It's cute. It's a little castle. If you have ever been so lucky as to go to Walt Disney World in your life and see Magic Kingdom, right? Magic Kingdom is huge. Disney World is huge. They had a bunch of swampland that they could just build whatever they wanted to there. But Disneyland is in Anaheim, and it's very small. They don't have a lot of land to expand down there. They had enough to expand across the street to California Adventure, but that's kind of it. Unless they start buying up some more land that people have put, tourist shops and hotels on. And if they buy, I guess, a highway, they can expand Disneyland. But it's really small, right? A good example of this is that Disneyland has a newer model of the monorail than Disney World will ever have, right? So Disney World has, I don't know what year it came out, but it's not the most recent monorail. The most recent monorail that exists is just, aesthetically looks cooler. It doesn't look like it's from the 80s, like the Disney World monorail. And it can't hold as many people. But for Disneyland, it doesn't matter. The monorail is just for funsies. So the monorail in Disneyland takes you from downtown Disney into Tomorrowland and then back out to downtown Disney, right? So unlike in Disney World, where the monorail takes you from hotel to hotel, it can take you to Magic Kingdom, it can take you to Epcot. It's like a functioning transportation system. In Disneyland, it's like a ride. So they're not as worried about getting as many people in. So Disney World, doesn't have time for the cutesy new monorail. They gotta put people in, take people off. They gotta move people that are all about moving large quantities of people to one place and out of another place. Disneyland doesn't have that issue. So in Disneyland, you'll see a lot more cutesy elements like the Little Man of Disneyland than you would be able to see in Disney World. So, buckle in for some deep lore here, folks.
I'm so excited to hear about whatever you're about to talk about. I have no idea.
So, in the trunk of an orange tree, which Anaheim was like all orange groves before Disneyland got there, and it still has a lot of orange groves. In the trunk of an orange tree, in Adventureland, there's a tiny little house. There is a little door, maybe like, 3 inches tall. A little window, a little chimney, a little lamp. They're all made out of natural materials, like a little fairy house, you might see, right?
Okay.
This is where you will find the home of the Little Man of Disneyland, the original resident of the park. His name is Patrick Bagora. He's a leprechaun. I don't know. That's kind of obvious from Patrick Bagora. So this lore was published in a little golden book. You know those little golden books?
With the gold bindings and the kids' books, yeah.
Right. In 1955. So it came out the same year that Disneyland Resort opened. It's called Walt Disney's Little Man of Disneyland. It explains this whole lore behind the Little Man of Disneyland.
Okay.
But that's not where he came from. That book is just a story about this real life thing that happened. So the story goes, the little man is living his life in his tree, right? He lived here for hundreds and hundreds of years, just in his little orange tree.
Okay.
He's living his life. And then Mickey and Donald and Goofy and Pluto and Minnie and all of them come up to his house and they're like, hey, we want to build a park where you live, but trust us, it's going to be incredible. It's going to be magical. There's going to be food and rides and you're going to love it. Like it's only good vibes. A little man is a little hesitant about this. So they say, hey, we'll put you in our helicopter. We're going to fly you to the Disney Studios in Burbank, and we're going to show you all the plans.
Man, that's what all the colonists say.
Yeah. They say, trust
Just
us.
trust us.
Just trust us.
Okay, I'm a little fearful for poor Patrick Bagora.
No, he's okay. He's flying in a helicopter with Mickey.
Okay.
Now, side note, this is how Walt Disney used to travel between the Disney Studios and Disneyland when he was building it. And probably after that, too, by helicopter. You can find the old helicopter pad and stuff. It's cool.
Neat.
Anyways, they fly him to Disney Studios. He looks over the plans. Patrick Bagora says, you know what? You got me. I'm convinced.
He's sold.
He's sold.
He's on board.
He's completely sold.
Take my house, take my home, make Disneyland.
Yeah, I'm happy. This looks great. As long as I can keep my house in my tree.
Okay.
Walt's like, no problem, buddy. We got you. You can keep your house. And that's how we are where we are today. So if you are lucky enough to find yourself in Adventureland in Disneyland Park, you could find the little man who lives in Disneyland. But sometimes you can't. It's a real fact.
So does his house tend to move around? Is it kind of...
No. He always has the same home. But leprechauns. Can't trap them easily.
I am so intrigued. I can't wait to hunt Patrick Bagora. I can't wait to try to find this leprechaun and his house at Disneyland when we're there.
You'll know he's home. You'll know he's home because sometimes his little lantern outside of his house is on. And sometimes it's not if he's not home. He could be walking around Disneyland. Can you blame him?
No. I mean, it seems like it'd be a great place to live. I don't think I would turn it down either. Now, is he in the Golden Book? Like, do you see a picture of him?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay, cool. So, if we Google him, we'll see a picture of him.
Yeah.
So he might be like our episode cover or something like that.
Oh, he definitely could be.
Okay, cool.
You should read the whole Golden Book.
I can't wait.
It's mostly Donald Duck who's making these negotiations with Patrick Bagora.
Well, that makes sense.
The whole party's involved. Donald Duck is on the cover, and it's pretty cute.
Rightfully so. I mean, how can you say no to Donald Duck? I think I could say no to Mickey. Somehow, I think I would have the willpower, but I don't think if Donald Duck asked anything of me, I don't think I could turn him down.
Well, you got a soft spot for Donald Duck, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And soon you'll have a soft spot for Patrick Bagora. If we're lucky, if we've got the luck of the Irish and the luck of the Disneyland on our side, we might be able to find the little man when we go.
We can only hope.
I've seen him before.
You have?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us.
I saw his house. I didn't see him.
Oh, I see. Did you take a picture or do pictures work?
You can't take a picture. It's a leprechaun's house. I don't want it to disappear.
Right. So as soon as I can see the conundrum here. And I imagine that lots of people don't believe that it exists until they see it for themselves, huh?
Of course they don't. And if they don't believe, they can't see it. So they're stuck there.
Dang.
Yep.
Well, there you go. The Little Man of Disneyland.
That's him.
The leprechaun of Disneyland maybe is a better title.
Yeah, I think it's like a 50s like slang of like, he's just a little man and he lives in a tree in Disneyland. They're not like,
Yeah. So maybe leprechaun of Disneyland is a little bit more accurate in today's
yes, that's true.
society. Yeah.
He is a small man.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. Anything else about the Little Man of Disneyland?
That was a delicious sorbet. I feel happy.
Feel refreshed?
I feel fulfilled.
Let's grab a mint.
Let's do it.
Ooh, wintergreen mints. I love a good wintergreen mint.
Boy, howdy. This is quite a wintergreen mint. And this is a really exciting dream card that you've cooked up for us this week, Brett.
This week we have Goofy Preposterous Skier.
Yeah, let me tell y'all what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a adorable picture of Goofy with his skis. He's set up. He's ready to go. And I don't think we've ever had our theme song singer on one of our dream cards.
We have not. And I'd also like to point out that as a skier myself, I'm happy to know that he is standing on top of one ski with the other ski. And so when he goes to move, he will most likely fall from the position that he's in.
Classic.
Yep.
Classic Goof. So this card is a 3-cost, uninkable, storyborn hero called Goofy Preposterous Skier.
He's an emerald card. He quests for 1, and he has the ability Wipeout.
When you play this character, deal 1 damage to all other characters. So he's a 1/1 that does 1 to everything else.
Just as an avalanche of damage, not unlike the card avalanche.
Indeed,
really.
actually, yeah.
So he is a great enabler for all of the emerald damage effects that require characters to already be damaged. The downside of playing this Goofy would be, of course, that he is uninkable and he's a very weak body himself. But I think it would be so great for Emerald to have the ability to enable some of those damage combos without playing Steel.
Yeah, I love this card.
Yeah, he contests the board. He pairs really well, admittedly, with Steel, but he would also pair very well with cards like Helga or Robin Hood's Bow or Floodborn Prince Philip.
Yeah, some cards we never really get to see.
Yeah. There's also some fun flavor text from the Goofy skiing short. There's no finer conquest than that of a mountain, clad in its glorious winter mantle of glittering white.
It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
I love the really, really pretentious language that accompanies his horrible skiing time.
It's incredible. As a side note here, folks, if it's been a while since you've watched one of the Goofy shorts, you go on to Disney Plus and find them. They're so good.
This one in particular is just one of my absolute favorites. It is also, I can drop some little Disney knowledge here. Here I go.
Okay.
It is the first time that the Goofy howl was ever used.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yep.
That's so cool.
So there you go. Another little tidbit of Disney knowledge. We've covered the snacks, we've covered the Disney, and we've covered the Lorcana here today. Let nobody say that we advertise falsely.
Indeed. That's how we're number 1, baby. All right. What's coming up next on the menu, Brett?
Next week, we'll give a little recap of our set championship experience because we will have played in 2 by the time we record next. Super exciting. We're also going to make next episode a little bit of the Princess and the Frog theme episode.
Yeah, so Tiana's Bayou Adventure is open now in Walt Disney World. It's not yet open in Disneyland, but it's open in Disney World. It's that replacement ride for Splash Mountain. I guess I shouldn't say replacement. It's kind of like a reskin, retheme of Splash Mountain. Exciting times here in the Disney Parks world. There's a lot of influencers that are out there riding it right now and giving reviews. It looks incredible. We've both tried to stay away from seeing too many spoilers, but we are very excited to talk about that with you.
We'll celebrate some of the Princess and the Frog characters' appearances in Lorcana, maybe try to build a little deck around that, and we'll have a great time doing it.
And if we're lucky, eat a couple beignets while we're at it.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Until next time, you can join us on social media by following us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, always at Smorkana, or send us an email, smorkana@gmail.com. We love hearing from you.
Until next time, everybody, keep on snacking.
Nom, 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 nom.